Hello, everyone. My name's Par from Pardon the Memes, and welcome to another episode of Pretty Damn Good, a show where I look at all the singles that were released in the past week or so that I thought were pretty damn good. From one off singles to lead singles to deep cuts on albums, here's some of the songs that I enjoyed this week, starting off with Aura by Kuko. Now, Kuko is a name that I wasn't really that familiar with, so when I heard that his sound was a lot more invested in like lo-fi, as well as catering to like Spanish speaking audiences as well, I was kind of surprised, but to be fair, I was also impressed by the overall sound. The chorus is just very simple with its very long notes, but also I think it's kind of endearing in the same way. In addition, the saxophone combined with the guitar solos that are at the end of this song do make for a really nice finishing touch. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. I just think it's a really interesting song that I could definitely see being on playlists far and wide in the future. Alright, next we got a deep cut from the new Viagra Boys album Cave World called Baby Criminal. It's a good name. Good name for a song. I just love the idea of baby criminals, baby prison. But on a more serious note, I do think this song has a lot going for it, from the driving force that's behind all the guitars, as well as the drums, as well as the subtle saxophone solos. You might be noticing a theme with these first two songs. Meanwhile, the lyrics are as deranged as any Viagra Boys song is, talking about how this son of someone turns into a criminal that enjoys doing things such as microwaving batteries, as well as other criminal behavior that ultimately shows kind of like a satirization of like kids becoming criminals and on kind of a hot button sort of like school shooters in a sense, where it's like almost all the signs are ignored of like trouble within this Timmy character. As such, I do think this is a really compelling piece, if not a very interesting song instrumentally. It's the opener on this album, and yet so much of this album has so much great potential instrumental wise. Alright, up next we have False Dichotomy from Metric's new album. I'll be honest, I didn't really listen to this album all the way through. I did listen to the first song that opened this one, Doom Scroller, and I wasn't anticipating it being a 10-minute, like, house-inspired deep cut. However, I will say False Dichotomy is really interesting for what it is. It has a really great synth line. It reminds me a lot of, like, MGMT. In addition, I kind of like the sentiment of there being like no choice ultimately to choose, the idea of like there being two options that seem so opposite to one another and yet they're so similar in the same capacity. In the song, it's talking about hate and love, kind of like how they're super strong emotions and yet they kind of seem like they're ultimately connected in the same vein, as well as Emily Haines' vocals being super concentrated to make the most of it within the most confines of it as possible. But yeah, this is a really fun song. I could definitely see this going off in the club. Alright, and up next we have the new song from CHAI and Superorganism called Hero Journey. I'll be honest, I'm just a sucker for cute sounding songs, I think, and this is definitely cute encapsulated all within a less than 2 minute time frame. From the endearing mixture of English and Japanese from CHAI's end, from the insanely complex but super fun instrumental coming from both of CHAI and Superorganism. I think this song definitely captures something very unique about a collaboration between these two. I'll be honest, I didn't really listen to CHAI's full album when it came out, but this definitely gives me incentive to check it out more so. Alright, up next we have, a deep cut that was actually from a friend of mine on Twitter, Homestare by Lynx Desmond. But yeah, I really did enjoy this song, definitely instrumentally. I thought it was a really interesting mix of like the strokes with like Weather Day perchance. I also enjoy sort of the modulations that go on after each of the choruses happen on this thing. It's just a really interesting sort of manipulation between all these different chords, and I think it's really interesting. In addition, the lyrics talk about sort of like the idea of like a homebody, but in this song it's a homestare. I think it's really compelling to like the insular introvert that's within me personally, that's trying to come out in some capacity, but is also kind of too afraid in some capacity as well. But yeah, just some of the lo-fi edges around this thing really make it stand out, and I do recommend this highly. Not just because, oh hey, it's from a friend of mine, but also because I do think it's a genuinely good song all the same. All right, and speaking of lesser known finds, here we have Philadelphia based Chewy with their song Recovering Catholic. Now, this cut is definitely a lot more poppier than some of their more math rockier and funkier and noisier sides of songs, especially with the single that they released before this, Melt Through. However, I still enjoy this all the same because I do enjoy some of their more popular songs, such as on their Tell Me What You Know EP. In addition, I do think that this song does compel a lot of like imagery as well as like ideas about wanting to become better in a sense. In addition, those vocal harmonies that happen right before the chorus do pack a punch and provide something almost kind of reminiscent of the Beach Boys, I feel. But yeah, this is definitely a great song. It doesn't overstay its welcome, even though it's almost over 5 minutes long. And yeah, I can't wait to see what comes of it. All right, up next we have a deep cut from the new Amico soundtrack provided by Chico Alba called Skipping, Stomping, Sour Sour. That's a good name. That's a real good name for a song. Now, I know Chico Alba mostly for her singer-songwriter stuff, so hearing more of an ambient and drone kind of experience with this did kind of throw me off guard. However, it's not to be unexpected because Chico Alba definitely did have some sort of serene qualities to her music in the past, especially with the sounds of nature that she would include with a lot of her songs. And this is no different, I'd say. I enjoy a lot of the guitar melodies that are on here that kind of fall over what kind of sounds like a bagpipe in a sense. And reading what I saw about the synopsis for this movie, I could definitely see sort of like some childlike wonder about this song, definitely. It's a unique track, I'd definitely check it out, as well as the rest of the soundtrack. It's not even that long, it's less than 30 minutes, so you could definitely breeze by this. Alright, up next we have Stepa's, a posse cut from Yo Gotti's CMG label, which features the likes of Yo Gotti alongside Moneybag Yo, 42 Dugg, ESTG, Mosey, Black Youngsta, as well as what I believe is a sample from a singer named India. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of a slut for posse cuts. Like, Brockhampton's one of my favorite bands of all time, and their whole discography is essentially posse cuts. What I think I like about this song most, though, is that it kind of sounds reminiscent of Super Gremlin by Kodak Black, meanwhile having a lot more put into it, a lot of sounds put into it from all of these artists. The artist who I think did the most on here, though, is definitely 42 Dugg. He threw a lot of energy behind his verse, especially during the second verse section of this song. In addition, while there isn't really a lot that's being said by these artists, I think I just kind of enjoy how they all kind of flow into one another. As though Yo Gotti had a lot of kind of connections with like seeing, oh, this artist kind of resembles this artist, so we're gonna put them together for sharing sort of like an 8 or 16 together. And yeah, I just gotta say I was really surprised, I guess, by this because individually I'm not a huge fan of everyone on this cut, but overall, altogether, I think they do add something more overall than their individual counterparts sort of lack. All right, up next is ooh, oh, that's a deep one. This one's Survivor's Guilt by Joey Badass. It's definitely one of the more emotional songs from this list. Joey here kind of channels a lot of energy that Kendrick Lamar had on Sing About Me, I'm Dying of Thirst to talk about some of his dead friends and relatives on here. The first verse is dedicated to Capital Steez, who is actually heard at the beginning of this song giving sort of like a recorded monologue about how he thinks different, how he's more free minded, and kind of goes into how his suicidal ideations kind of went unnoticed by a lot of people, even Joey himself. And ultimately, Joey feels like he has some sort of blame in his death because of the fact that they were so close and yet he wasn't able to identify the signs. Meanwhile, the second verse is dedicated to his cousin as well as his manager, Junior B. And I feel like both the deaths kind of like are yin and yang to each other because Joey feels guilt and remorse for the first one as though he was directly involved with it. Meanwhile, the second verse, I think he is trying to bring himself up out of the first body that he saw in order to say, hey, I'm going to shout your name from rooftops. I'm going to do all these things to make sure that you're not forgotten, even though it's been 10 years since your death. And yeah, it's definitely a really potent song. I'd check it out if you haven't already. It's really great, and I can't wait till Joey Badass's new album, 2000. And finally, we're going to be talking about the new song from Breakins called Venus Flytrap. I'll be honest, I didn't really know a lot about Breakins before going into this song, and seeing one of his top songs on Spotify feature Black Bear definitely didn't give me too high of hopes. And I can definitely hear some of the themes of Black Bear's music all over this thing, especially with the idea of like this woman trying to get the better of him, trying to manipulate him. However, the way that it's played up feels a lot more mystical and magical, and ultimately a little bit more mythical in the way that it's portrayed. In addition, I do really love some of the hyperpop angles that are given to this thing, such as the vocal manipulation, as well as some of the passing filters that come on in and throughout this song. And I don't know, there's just something infectious about this guy's voice, especially over how the beat kind of just flows really quick, really fast paced. And if I'm being honest with myself, this is probably the song that I listened to most this week. Not to mention that it kind of fades out and then comes back in with kind of like a slower tempo interlude to close the track. And if that's not another thing that I'm a fucking slut for, it's fucking posse cuts and beat switches. But yeah, overall, Venus Flytrap by Breakins, gotta say, pretty damn good. But yeah, that was all the songs I wanted to talk about this week. In the description, you can find a Spotify playlist for all the songs that I mentioned here. And also in the comments down below, if you want to leave some songs that I left out in this video, I'd be happy to hear them. The more songs to listen to, the merrier. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you want to leave a like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Who knows? Maybe I can put you in my next video if you make music and you follow me on Twitter. Anyways, my name's Par. You've been watching Pretty Damn Good, and I hope you have a pretty damn good one out there. I'll see you next time.